A day in the life of the Sultan of Brunei. There are wealthy people, there are billionaires, and then there are monarchs whose wealth is tied to entire nations. Somewhere at the very top of that rare category sits the Sultan of Brunei, a figure whose daily life feels less like a personal routine and more like a moving world of its own. To understand a single day in his life is to step into a reality shaped by palaces instead of houses, fleets instead of cars, and decisions that quietly influence an entire country before most people even start their morning. Brunei itself is a small nation on the island of Borneo, but what it lacks in size, it makes up for in resource wealth, particularly oil and gas. That foundation has shaped the lifestyle and responsibilities of its ruler in ways that are almost impossible to compare with any modern civilian experience. And yet, what is most surprising is not just the luxury. It is how structured, disciplined, and politically loaded every hour of the day tends to be. The morning in the world of the Sultan does not begin with chaos or noise. It begins with quiet precision. Within the palace grounds, staff movements are coordinated long before any public activity begins. Security, advisors, household staff, and protocol teams operate like a machine that never stops adjusting itself. There is no rushing in the ordinary sense, because time itself is managed differently when your schedule is tied to both governance and legacy. What stands out immediately is that even something as simple as breakfast is rarely simple. Meals are not just personal moments, but carefully prepared settings where discussions can begin at any time. In environments like this, conversations about national matters do not wait for formal boardrooms. They happen naturally, often over food, sometimes between brief pauses in larger responsibilities. It creates a rhythm where personal life and state matters quietly overlap without clear separation. As the morning progresses, the Sultan's role shifts into something closer to a continuous flow of meetings. These are not ordinary corporate discussions. They involve national planning, economic direction, infrastructure development, and international relations. When a country relies heavily on energy exports, global markets become part of daily conversation, whether intended or not. Decisions made in these rooms can influence long-term national stability, which adds a level of weight that most professions never experience. But what is interesting is how calm the environment often appears from the outside. There is no visible urgency, yet everything is happening with precision underneath. It is a reminder that power does not always look loud. Sometimes it looks controlled, measured, and almost quiet. Moving through the palace grounds, it becomes clear that this is not a single building in the way most people understand it. It is more like a self-contained world. There are reception halls, private quarters, administrative spaces, ceremonial rooms, and areas reserved for official guests. The structure itself reflects decades of governance and tradition, where architecture is not just about design, but about function at a national level. At some point during the day, official audiences may take place. These are formal meetings where representatives, diplomats, or officials present matters directly to the Sultan. Unlike informal discussions, these moments carry ceremony. There is protocol, seating arrangements, formal language, and a strong sense of tradition. Even the smallest gesture holds meaning, because in monarchies, symbolism often carries as much weight as policy. Yet despite the grandeur, there is also repetition. Governance is not a single dramatic moment. It is a sequence of decisions, reviews, approvals, and adjustments that continue day after day. From economic planning to social development programs, each topic requires attention that cannot be rushed. This creates a unique rhythm where time feels both abundant and extremely valuable at the same time. As the day moves forward, transportation becomes another fascinating part of the routine. The Sultan is known for access to a highly extensive collection of luxury vehicles and aircraft. But in practice, these are not used for display. They serve functional purposes for movement, security, and international travel. When your responsibilities extend beyond national borders, mobility becomes an essential tool of leadership rather than just comfort. There is also an interesting contrast between public perception and daily reality. From the outside, many imagine constant extravagance, but the actual structure of a monarch's day is often highly disciplined. There are obligations that cannot be postponed, meetings that must happen, and diplomatic expectations that require consistency. In many ways, the schedule resembles that of a CEO, except scaled to an entire nation with historical significance attached. At certain points, the Sultan may engage in leisure activities, but even these are often intertwined with tradition. Equestrian interests, private collections, and carefully curated environments reflect both personal preference and cultural heritage. It is not leisure in the casual sense most people imagine. It is structured, preserved, and often connected to identity and history. One of the more fascinating aspects of life at this level is how isolation and visibility coexist. On one hand, privacy is heavily protected. On the other, every action carries public relevance. A monarch cannot simply step out without layers of planning. Even moments of relaxation exist within a framework designed to maintain security, protocol, and dignity. As evening approaches, the pace of the day does not necessarily slow down. In many cases, it becomes more reflective. This is when summaries of the day's discussions are reviewed, decisions are finalized, and future planning begins to take shape. It is not unusual for late hours to be dedicated to reading reports, analyzing developments, or preparing for upcoming international engagements. There is also a symbolic dimension to the evening. In monarchies, the presence of the ruler is not only administrative, but also ceremonial. State identity is often tied to visibility, tradition, and continuity. This means that even routine evenings can carry elements of formality depending on national events or public occasions. And yet, beneath all of this structure, there is still a human life being lived. Routine, rest, conversation, and personal time exist, even if they are surrounded by layers of responsibility. What makes it fascinating is not the absence of normal life, but how normal life adapts itself around extraordinary circumstances. It is easy to focus only on the wealth or the palaces or the cars, but a full day in the life of the Sultan of Brunei is ultimately a study in balance between tradition and modern governance, between personal identity and national expectation, between privacy and visibility, between history and the present moment. And when the day finally comes to an end, what remains is not just the image of luxury or power, but the reality of continuity. A nation still running, decisions still shaping the future, and a leadership role that never truly switches off. If there is one thing that stands out after looking at this world closely, it is that life at the very top is not defined by excess alone. It is defined by responsibility that never pauses, even when the world outside finally goes quiet. If you enjoyed this video, make sure to like, subscribe, and share your thoughts in the comments. Stay tuned for more deep dives into the lives, routines, and realities of the world's most powerful figures.